Israel is going all out to eliminate Hamas for good in the Gaza Strip, casting off the restraints it put on the IDF in previous rounds of fighting. A new plan has been presented to the IDF Chief of Staff, and today we will go into the details of this plan to understand the truth about what is happening in Gaza, boots on the ground style. Against the background of Hamas's insistence on hardening its positions on the hostage release issue, IDF forces continue to operate in the Gaza Strip and cleanse the area of terrorist strongholds, and according to recent reports, the IDF presented new plans to the Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, that include airstrikes and the capture of additional territory inside Gaza. So far, the forces operating in the Gaza Strip have destroyed dozens of terror infrastructures, tunnels, and weapons depots, deepened control in the area, and eliminated several terrorist fighters. That's on the physical battlefield, but the IDF is also fighting on the virtual battlefield using an Arabic chatbot and tech personnel empowered by artificial intelligence. The New York Times news portal published a report this week giving some of the details of the advanced artificial intelligence systems developed by the IDF, which are becoming a decisive weapon in the fighting. From eliminating senior Hamas figures to locating hostages, game-changing technologies are emerging from Unit 8200's Innovation Studio, including the Lavender system for target classification. However, alongside operational successes, ethical questions arise about the system's accuracy and the harms to civilians. Also, questions continue to arise about how Hamas is able to continue attacking with their leadership in hiding, humanitarian aid not entering the Gaza Strip, and the IDF applying intense pressure. Commanders at all levels and their replacements, and sometimes the replacements of the replacements, have been eliminated, and most of the fighters are recent recruits with little or no training. On the other hand, the terrorist organization Hamas still manages to carry out organized guerrilla attacks from the border area to deep inside Gaza. We'll give you a status report on everything that's happening in this war. You will also receive a review of Hamas's money machine, how the terrorist organization uses Israeli banknotes against us in Israel. And within the chaos of bombing out the Gaza Strip, a sophisticated financial system operates under Hamas's control. While Israel tries to choke Hamas in Gaza, the organization has found a way to turn the Israeli shekels, the Israeli currency, into its economic engine, and it all actually starts with digital money transferred by international aid organizations. Israel claims that Hamas is trying to limit the ceasefire to 5 years, while sources in Hamas supplied the Arab media with details from the Cairo contacts saying that mediators proposed a 6-month phase agreement, and the organization demanded the release of all the hostages in one stage and refuses to discuss disarmament of Hamas in Gaza. So we have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what's happening in Israel on day 571 of the war against Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups in this region that are acting under the command of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. And a moment before we begin, I want to once again invite you to click on the subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you'll never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. The IDF said on Saturday that the maneuvering forces are approaching areas where Hamas operates, and the IDF estimates that as military pressure increases in the coming days, Hamas will be compelled to fight. A military source added that the goal of Operation Oz Vecherev, Strength and Sword, is to increase the pressure on Hamas and bring it to agree to the return of the hostages. And we already have quite a few achievements. This can be added to an intelligence estimate that since the beginning of the operation, about 400 terrorists of various command ranks as well as Hamas governmental personnel have been eliminated. The military source added, the more Hamas refuses to surrender, we will increase the pressure. The Rafah model will be applied to additional areas in Gaza as well. We intend to intensify the pressure in the near future, and this will include more fire strikes, reinforcement of forces arrays, and seizure of additional territory. In the coming days, we will also significantly expand the reserve force level. And meanwhile, after an initial debrief on Saturday's encounter, in which 4 reservists of the IDF were wounded in the Tel Sultan neighborhood of Rafah, it turns out it was an IED attached in which the charge was remotely detonated. Immediately after the charges were set off, small arms fire was directed at the force, and 1 soldier was seriously wounded, 1 moderately, and 2 lightly. However, despite this and other difficulties, the battle team of the Iron Fist Brigade 205 continues operational activity in the Tel Sultan in the Rafah area in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. So far, the forces have located and destroyed dozens of terror infrastructures and many weapons used by Hamas. In addition, the forces eliminated dozens of terrorists under direction of the brigade fire cell located and destroyed several booby-trapped houses in these battles against Hamas in Gaza. Next, we will take a closer look into the IDF's capabilities in the Gaza campaign. But first, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Remember, we bring you boots on the ground of what's happening in Israel at any time, so you will know how to pray for the situation. Hamas leadership is hiding in tunnels. Humanitarian aid has not entered the Gaza Strip for more than 40 days. There are no weapons or ammunition smuggling routes into Gaza, and senior and junior commanders have been eliminating, including replacement of the replacement, and the organization is forced to recruit the inexperienced. Yet, the terror organization still manages to carry out organized guerrilla attacks. It compensates for the collapse of the old order by focusing on high-quality attacks with a high chance of success. So what is happening on the border and in the buffer zone between Israel and the Gaza Strip? The IDF conducts routine activity along the Gaza Strip border. The purpose of the activity is to prevent infiltration and detect suspicious underground actions. Although the border gates are open, they are under surveillance, and security combined with observation posts are manning the positions. The IDF's Gaza division does not rule out a scenario in which terrorists will try to breach the border, and this is being closely monitored. The IDF has set up posts in the buffer zone about 1 kilometer from the border to serve as a barrier between the depth of the Palestinian territory and the fence in order to prevent infiltrations. These posts are intended to be the first contact point with the terrorists if they try to enter the Israeli territory. This is a change from the situation before October 7th, when the perimeter was only 100 meters and Gaza residents could easily approach the fence, gather intelligence, and in retrospect also plan charges and prepare for war. It appears that Hamas's military wing has begun marking the posts in the buffer zone as targets and carrying out attacks on them. This reality increases the tension inside these posts, which are obligated to deploy forces into the area and defend itself. For this purpose, the IDF currently operates 8 brigade combat teams under 3 divisions: the Gaza Division, Division 252, and Division 36. The battle teams operate deep inside the Palestinian territory in the northern part of the Gaza Strip, opposite Gaza City in the center, and in the southern part of Gaza, with emphasis on Rafah, the southernmost Palestinian city that is bordering Egypt, with the goal of expanding the area under the IDF's control. Therefore, these forces engage in combat with terror squads, some emerging from underground, some above ground under cover of ruined buildings, carrying out sniper fire, small arms fire, and launching anti-tank missiles at the IDF troops and armored vehicles. The purpose of all of this is to try to exert pressure on Hamas and deny the organization its stocks of weapons. For instance, the combat team of the Iron Fist Brigade 205 is carrying out operational activity in the Tel Sultan neighborhood in the Rafah area. According to the IDF spokesperson, so far the forces have located and destroyed dozens of terror infrastructures and many weapons that Hamas used, and in the course of the activity, the forces also found about 80 meters from a building that had formerly served as a school and about 100 meters from the building that had served as a hospital in Rafah, UNRWA humanitarian aid sacks, inside of which weapons of Hamas were hidden. This is not the first time that Hamas is using humanitarian aid and UNRWA facilities to hide weapons, ammunition, and other goods that they want to use to continue waging the war against Israel. Recall that over the weekend, fighters of Brigade 401 located a Hamas ammunitions depot in Darj Tufa in the northern part of Gaza. Rockets, anti-tank missiles, and other weapons were found there. And speaking of weapons, Southern Command is concentrating an intelligence effort aimed at creating a weapons shortage for Hamas. The fact that the Philadelphia corridor is blocked and parts of the Gaza Strip are under full or partial siege makes it difficult for Hamas terrorists to transfer or obtain additional armaments, meaning more weapons and ammunition to continue the fight. Guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to seek and share the truth of what's happening boots on the ground in this conflict in Israel and in this region. We ask you to help us by subscribing to this YouTube channel, clicking the like, making a comment, and sharing these videos. And make sure to look for us also on other social media platforms, but only search for official channels because there are many fake accounts, so beware. And speaking of the truth, the economic damage from the war in Israel is real. Thousands of small businesses were forced to shut their doors. Orders stopped. Entire families lost their income overnight. People aren't looking for handouts. They're looking for a chance to work, to rebuild, to move forward. That's where you come in. There's a way that you can provide real economic relief right now, and that's through Artza. When you subscribe, you're directly supporting Israeli artisans and small businesses. Each box that you will get is filled with handmade products crafted by people whose livelihood were hit the hardest in this conflict, the small businesses of Israel. It's more than a beautiful gift. It's a paycheck, it's groceries, it's hope for the people of Israel. So this is what you give when you subscribe to Artza. This is the moment to show up. So use the code TBNIL and get a 10% off your subscription. Go to www.artzabox.com and be part of helping Israel recover, one family, one business, one box at a time. www.artzabox.com and use the code TBNIL for a 10% discount. Thank you. Now getting back to the news. And according to a report published on Friday in the New York Times, Israel has used the war in Gaza to test and rapidly deploy AI-based military technologies on an unprecedented scale. The report says that after the October 7th attacks, Israel sought a way to eliminate Ibrahim Biari, a senior Hamas commander in the northern part of Gaza, who was involved in the planning of the October 7 attacks. Israeli intelligence could not locate Biari, who was thought to be hiding in tunnels. So how was he finally found and neutralized in Jabalia on the 31st of October? The New York Times quoted 3 Israeli and American sources who said that Israeli officials turned to a new AI integrated military technology. The technology, they say, had been developed a decade earlier but had never been field tested. The brains behind it were engineers in Unit 8200, an elite unit within the IDF Cyber Command. According to the report, these engineers taped Biari's conversations and assessed his likely location using an AI-based audio tool. Based on this information, Israel ordered airstrikes in the area on the 31st of October 2023, resulting in his elimination. Hamas claimed over 400 casualties from this attack, but that was never confirmed, kind of like a lot of other things that Hamas said over the years, and especially during this conflict. However, the IDF announced that the elimination led to the collapse of a terror tunnel that had been beneath civilian buildings. But this is not the only way that Israel is using AI in this war. Since the start of the conflict, Israel has combined AI tools with facial recognition softwares to confirm the identities of battlefield casualties, including those whose faces have been burned or otherwise disfigured in combat. The report also claimed that Israel used AI to compile potential targets for airstrikes and carried an Arabic language AI model to run a chatbot that can scan and analyze text messages, social media posts, and other Arabic language data. It was also noted that many of these efforts were the work of Unit 8200, assisted by reservists who worked at private tech firms such as Google, Microsoft, and Meta. However, the report states that even as Israel rushed to develop its array of AI tools, use of these technologies sometimes led to mistaken identifications and to arrests. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every development. So keep spreading the truth, help us seek, understand, and share what's happening in this region, in this conflict, and the most important thing that you can do, other than subscribing to this YouTube channel, is to keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem. And switching our focus to the diplomatic front, a Hamas delegation spent the weekend in Cairo and held discussions with the Egyptian mediators on a new ceasefire outline for the Gaza Strip. Nevertheless, no significant progress was recorded because this is not a serious outline. The proposal speaks of 5 years of ceasefire in exchange for the release of all the hostages effectively and end de facto to the war in every respect. And according to Israeli reports, Israel has already ruled this possibility out, refusing to consider a ceasefire that leaves Hamas in power in the Gaza Strip for 5 years or even for 1 year. Therefore, for now, we are still stuck in the same impasse in the talks. However, there are unverified reports of some initial cracks in the Hamas leadership, according to which some of the organization's leaders, but not those who currently represent the official leadership, approached Egypt and said that they are willing to discuss disarming Hamas and exiling some of its leaders from the Gaza Strip. The source noted that there is an Egyptian-Qatari proposal that includes phased ceasefire agreements that would last 6 months in exchange for halting the military actions by both sides and a prisoner exchange of some of the hostages in the first stage. The sources added that during the 6 months, negotiations would be conducted on a permanent ceasefire agreement and an end to the war. Discussions would take place on arrangement for the day after the war, reconstruction of the Gaza Strip according to the Egyptian plan, and a prisoner exchange that includes all the hostages as well as Palestinian security prisoners serving lifetime in Israeli jails. The sources emphasized that there is clear seriousness on all sides, including Israel, to reach an agreement soon. It was also stated that Hamas will examine the mediator's proposal within the organization and with the other Palestinian factions. Despite this, the official position of Hamas and its leadership, which currently represents the organization and Hamas in the Gaza Strip, demands an Israeli commitment in advance to end the war, does not accept the position that speaks of disarming Hamas in exchange for such a commitment, and therefore we are at this, impasse situation. It seems that we are heading in the coming days towards an intensification of the fighting in the Gaza Strip, because I don't see a way that these negotiations will progress into something more materialized. It also needs to be pointed out that on the Israeli side, some ministers in the government are losing patience with the policy of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz, together with the Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir, who intend to allow more time to obtain a deal. More and more ministers and members of parliament in Israel feel that the time has come to dispense with measured intensification of the fighting. Instead, they want to initiate a large operation to conquer the Gaza Strip and topple Hamas once and for all. So guys, here at TBN Israel, we will continue to report on every detail in the war against Hamas. And we invite you to continue and tune in, share, and follow us. And most importantly, pray. Pray for the situation. Pray for wisdom to our leaders, to your leaders, to the allies of Israel, and for all the situation that affects all the civilians in this region. Let's pray for the Iranian people, that they will have better leadership. Let's pray for the Palestinian people that are under the rule of a terrorist organization for more than 20 years. Let's pray for them to have a better future. And let's unite in prayer for our hostages to be released from the Gaza Strip back to their families in Israel. And the most important thing that we can do is pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God has all the answers. Let's trust in Him. And prayer works. So let's use the tool that God gave us.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.